Hi, I'm Alexandra Daddario,
And I'm Elise Duran,
and we are in studio with The Hollywood Reporter.
and this is Toots McGillicuddy.
So Can You Keep a Secret is now in theaters, and you obviously star in the movie, but you also are attached as an executive producer. You directed it, and Toots McGillicuddy here is a big star in the movie, plays the dog in the movie. But so what drew you both to wanting to work on this project?
I sat down. I loved the script, and I was looking also to do something very fun. I love romantic comedies. It's just a nice, fun thing to work on. And I sat down with Elise, and we immediately connected. And I really believed in her and wanted to work with her. So it just seemed like the perfect thing for where I was in my life, needing that sort of fun romantic comedy, great script, great director, and I got really lucky.
I love to laugh. I wanted to do something that would make people laugh. I saw great potential in the story to bring it modern day, too. And when we met, we just connected. And we had the same sense of humor, which was great because we love to laugh. And it felt very organic.
And we're both a little absurd. And
Yeah.
I think that life is absurd. And if you embrace that and not try to ignore it, you find some really cool moments. And I think we did find that in the film. Because we
Definitely.
both have the same sort of absurd approach to life.
Yeah.
With also a great consideration of how hard life can be. So I
Definitely.
think that we brought all of that to the film.
We shared the need to create a really positive working environment for women. That was really important to us. For everybody, of course, but particularly for women. So that bonded us as well.
Yeah.
And our love of rescue dogs bonded us.
Like Toots, right
Like
here.
Toots McGillicuddy.
That's right.
Now, speaking of women working on the film, did you go out of your way to really try to hire a lot of women
Yes.
behind the scenes?
Absolutely. Yes, we have Autumn Eakin, who is our DP. Anywhere I could, I hired women. And it was the majority of the positions, for sure.
That's amazing. And also
Yeah.
watching the movie, it's really clear on screen. There's a lot of diversity in the film.
Absolutely.
Did you also try and do that behind the scenes?
Absolutely. Both with the main cast, supporting cast, and background as well. It was crucial that the cast represent the world that we live in.
And you've talked about this movie being obviously a comedy and a little absurd sometimes, but how do you think this role is different than ones you've played on screen in the past?
One of the great things about doing this was all of us were allowed the chance to improv a lot and
That was
bring
crucial.
out a huge part of ourselves and our own goofiness and our own unique perspectives. And I think that created a lot of unique moments and allowed me to bring out part of myself that I sometimes don't bring out in roles. You know, I've been able to do a lot of stunt work and play this sort of badass one, which is incredibly cool in its own way. And in this case, I was allowed to tap into more of the goofiness and vulnerability and really just improv and go off.
A huge amount of the film is improv. And that was a lot coming from documentaries, too. But also I knew that was the key to it being authentic. It was really fun to watch. I mean, I had a hard time. I'd have to put, like, towels in my mouth and stuff so I wouldn't ruin takes because I was
She's
laughing so
laughing.
much. So it was a joy.
Yeah, I actually wanted to ask that because watching it as a viewer, I found myself laughing through so much of it. Were there any scenes that you as an actor, or then, yeah, even as the director, you had a hard time getting through because you just couldn't stop laughing?
I had a tough time with David Charles Ebert, who plays my boyfriend at the beginning of the film. He is really very funny, and a lot of what he did didn't end up in the film because he became so absurd. I was dying laughing, and I usually can keep a straight face pretty well. It was very hard at times, but I liked when you laughed because it made me feel like I was being funny. So it was like an encouraging. It was encouraging, even if it was ruining the take or I had to ADR it. It was kind of nice because you have that encouragement.
Yeah, it was really fun. I wanted us all to laugh for a living. I mean, that's really the goal. That was the goal. And interesting thing about David Charles Ebert, he read for Casey. And I literally, and I don't use that word a lot because I think it's overused, but I fell out of my chair because he was so funny. And I thought, he needs to have a bigger role, and that's why I cast him as Connor.
Was Connor originally going to be that, like, kooky and
No.
crazy? So he really sort of stepped into that and made that his own.
Connor on the page was a very good-looking, not that David isn't good-looking, he is, but a vapid, kind of pretty boy, and
he
David
turned
is
out-
not that.
And yeah, that character is so not that. He's this super, like, dorky, awkward boyfriend that's,
But
like, kind of
lovable.
cringeworthy.
Everything a woman could want. I perform cunnilingus.
This isn't working out.
And I also wanted to ask about the vibe of the cast, because there's some obviously big-name actors in this movie, like Laverne Cox, but it sounds like the vibe on set was amazing and that you all got along so well.
Oh, yeah.
And Laverne was incredible because she came into the project and she was there for, what, a week and a half?
Yeah, a short period of time.
And she could have just come in and done her job and left, and she cared so deeply and had such a clear perspective on the role and on the entire project, and she helped the story in such a tremendous way. She added in an extra scene that helped the movie so much, and I really respect and appreciate her for coming in and caring so much.
She was tremendous, and really, like Alex said, she came and she could have phoned it in, come in, and done her thing and left, but she cared deeply. We had long conversations about her character, and it was beautiful. And at the end, she said something to me that brought me to tears. She said, I was coming in thinking, oh, it's a fun rom-com, and that's cool, but it was much more than I had bargained for.
And
Yeah.
speaking of vulnerability, being a young person, out in the world of dating, I really related to the message of the movie of, when you first start dating someone, how honest do you be? Do you tell them all your secrets? Or do you, maintain that mystery at the beginning of the relationship? So what are your guys' thoughts on that?
Well, the message of the movie is to essentially, for everybody, every character, is to be yourself, and that being yourself is cool. So some people may feel more comfortable sharing themselves or not, but it's also that people make mistakes, and that's okay. So I think it's a really positive message either way. But with dating, I'm the last person, but I think it's just about being yourself and finding the thing that will click with that.
Yeah, because you hope that when you're yourself, it's like the truth won't scare the right person away. And as you see in the movie, it doesn't scare him away, even though he knows all her secrets.
Right, exactly.
And again, it's about being vulnerable, right? We're all vulnerable, and a lot of times we do a lot to hide it. And at the end of the day, what connects us? Vulnerability. You have
Even
to be,
if it's hard.
Even if it's hard.
That's
and
right.
even if someone doesn't accept it, then you know, right?
And the sooner you tell them, it's the sooner then you move on and find the right person.
Yes.
Right.
So there you go.
Right.
Exactly.
Advice for myself. I need to date. It's hard out here.
It's
I swear,
hard.
It's
hard.
But now this movie is a rom-com, of course. So what's your favorite rom-com of all time?
I love Notting Hill. I'm obsessed with Notting Hill. It's such a good movie. Julia Roberts, Hugh Grant, doesn't get better than that. So great. And when the roommate walks in, I don't know if people remember the movie, but when the roommate walks in and Julia Roberts is in the bathtub in the apartment, it's a hilarious scene. I also love Bringing Up Baby, Katharine Hepburn, Cary Grant, old movie, but that's a great rom-com too.
The first thing that comes to mind is Albert Brooks' Modern Romance. I'm a huge fan of Albert Brooks, and Modern Romance struck that perfect balance between comedy and tragedy, the tragedy of being human, and insecure, all those things. And I just adore that movie.
And so now the big question, can you keep a secret?
No, don't tell me anything. Yeah, I can keep a secret if it's... The problem with me is I'll deem whether there's maybe one person I should tell.
I do that too.
No, I think the risk, this is why I don't tell anyone anything because I think everyone sort of does that. It's like,
Yeah.
I can tell this one person. But I feel like I keep secrets that are important to tell, but if you don't want something to be told, don't tell anyone. People are bad at it.
That's true. I feel like my mom is always the one person I tell. I'm like, oh, my mom's not going to tell anyone. I can tell her.
Right. And then, of course, I do the same thing. And then, of course, my sister knows, and her boyfriend knows. And then,
And you're like, wait, Dad knows? Like, how does everybody know?
Yeah. I'm like, wait a second. Like, well, it's your sister.
Now, speaking of love and relationships, you also, and that's what this movie is, all about, you also now are starring in a show that's about love and relationships, Why Women Kill, on CBS All Access. And so now, for anybody who hasn't seen that show, can you just give us like a little rundown on what it's about and your character's role in it?
Why Women Kill, it's from the same creator who created Desperate Housewives. So it's very over the top, but also grounded at the same time. Really fun. It's a dark comedy in a way. And it's 3 different time periods, 60s, 80s, and modern day. I'm in the modern day story. And it just portrays 3 different women who are dealing with betrayal and how they deal with betrayal in different time periods and how it's changed and how it hasn't changed.
I would say you're in the most complicated relationship in the show. You're in a, not to spoil it at all, but a throuple.
It's a throuple. It's an open relationship, which I have never personally been in. So it was really fun to explore what that might be like. And I have friends who are in those kinds of relationships, and I think that either they're becoming more common or people are discussing them more, being more open about them. But yeah, it's myself, Reed Scott, and Kirby Howell Baptiste in a throuple.
And thus far in the show, what we've seen, things are already getting really complicated.
Yes.
And so what can we expect for the rest of the season? What's going to happen with these 3 characters?
It gets really juicy. I think that, it's one of those things, the whole show, you don't know which way it's going to twist and turn. And it just gets really, really exciting. So it's one of those things, every single episode is a cliffhanger, and you want to know what happens next, and you won't expect what's going to happen next.
And now with these 2 projects, Emma is kind of awkward and quirky, but then Jade is super confident and seems like she just, knows who she is. Who would you say you relate to more in your own life?
I definitely relate to Emma from Can You Keep a Secret? Jade she's very sexy and confident, and I would say that's more of a role that I play than actually who I am in real life. I'm more a bumbling goofball. The sexy sort of like seductress I'm not good at that stuff. I think men get baffled when they get me into bed. They're like, what is this? So
that's why it was fun to play Emma, because you got to be more yourself. I definitely relate more to Emma, so I get that, the kind of quirky, awkward thing.
Sure.
Yeah.
And for both of you now, just talking about the show, Why Women Kill, there's these 3 time periods, the 60s, the 80s, and today. If you could live in any of those time periods, which one would you want to live in?
Oh, God. They'd all be cool. I mean, modern day we've been doing it, and it has its own problems.
Yeah.
The 80s were a really interesting time. And I would like to try the 80s, if not just for the fashion. And to go to aerobics classes. And I just think it was to wear leg warmers and go to an aerobics class. Can't do that now.
That's true. It's only Halloween you can dress up like that.
Yeah.
But they dress like that all the time.
And I love the idea of living before cell phones.
Definitely.
I would have loved to have done that.
Definitely.
These cell phones are driving me
They're
nuts.
They're a nightmare.
Yeah. Yep.
Yeah. I would pick 60s, but if 70s it would be 70s all the way. Yeah, which
Well, if you're in the
explains her
60s, you'd
wardrobe.
eventually get to the 70s.
Right. That's true. That's true.
And
It
the-
depends
depending on how old you
I
are.
am.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure. Can I add one little thing?
Yes, you can.
Just about how important it was for us to promote rescue in the film.
Yes.
That was huge.
The
and
whole
important.
movie is vegan. Everything we wore was vegan. There was no leather. Everything was green.
Suede,
and
yeah.
we promoted dog rescue. So adopt, don't shop.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much for talking to me.
Thank you so much.
Yes, of course. And you can check out Can You Keep a Secret in theaters now, and you can watch Why Women Kill on CBS All Access.